Hi friends, how are you? Welcome back to the channel. And as you can see, we have a new background, but the thing that we're going to talk about today is still the same. So we are going to have another dramatic fanfiction video. You may ask me, like, why is there another TBR and not a recommendation? So first of all, the truth is I haven't been able to read. I've been so busy with the move. I've been busy at work. I've just been busy running around and I didn't have like a lick of time to read. So I don't have anything to talk to you guys about, either recent read or even like recommendation, because I haven't really read anything, let alone anything that is like recommendation worthy. But in my defense, I actually had like a bomb ass reading summer up until like the move. I have worked through the entire summer TBR except for 2 works, so I feel like it's time for me to put together another list because I've done so well. And because of that, I also recognize that my mood for reading has changed because I've been so engrossed in all of the dry, bubbly, lovely love affair. But now that the weather is changing into that chilly morning and night, changing into fall, I feel like I wanted to have like mellower, angstier, and like more emotional story in my life. I also wanted to do longer fic as well. I told you guys this before the summer, I just want something quick, like in and out. But now I want to be engrossed in some long fic with like a whole timeline and everything, you know what I mean? That's why we're back together with another TBR. First on my TBR is Tremble and Depart by Dark of the Moon. This story follows Draco and Hermione as they join force to explore a curious mission at the mysterious Not Mansion. We have kind of like 2 enemies coming together on a mission here, which is kind of like right up off our alley. It's just one of the greatest tropes that have like many great fics. So this is one of the very few work that I haven't finished by Dark of the Moon. I actually started this story before when I was on the whole Dark of the Moon marathon, but for some reason I was very distracted and I never finished out the story, which now I felt like is a fumble on my part. I will fall in love with Dark of the Moon grocery list, to-do list, if I am able to read it. So I don't know why I haven't read like one of the very few longer pieces by her yet, which is what is fitting that is going on my TBR for the fall, because whenever I think of like mellow, angsty story with like silent care, unspoken intimacy, soft touches, and all of that, like I would think of Dark of the Moon on the top of my head. And also just by looking at the synopsis, it's very apparent to me and probably to all of you as well that we have a Draco who thinks very little of himself in this story. And dare I even say, it's like the Draco that we all agree to love, the man who thinks he doesn't deserve you the most, and all that kind of good stuff. Okay, I'm excited for this Draco. Additionally, from the text, we have Theodore Nott, Harry Potter, and Narcissa Malfoy, which is just the elite trio when it comes to dramatic fanfiction. And when all 3 of them are like involved together in a story, I just feel like that's a signal for greatness. Lastly, lengthwise, this story lands around 140,000 words, which is kind of perfect for me at this moment. You guys know that I tend to go for a shorter story around 70 to 80,000 words, but objectively, I feel like the perfect length for a fanfiction is around 150,000 words. So overall, honestly, this story is a very highly anticipated fic for me because I love Dark of the Moon and also it fits everything that I want to read at this moment. So I wish, finger crossed, that it's gonna turn out to be a 5-star read for me. Next, we have Green Light by Serene Mustafir. This story has been recommended to me by a few of you guys, and I have seen the rave about this story all over the internet, all over the dramatic community. So I'm curious about this story, and I finally think that it's the right time for me to head into this. If you guys have read the story already, or if you guys have heard of it, please help me with the synopsis because it not only intrigued me, it actually confused me. Who is the journalist? Is it one of them? Because in the first paragraph, it say that the journalist sit down with Draco, but then in the second paragraph, it say that the story is told from Hermione's point of view. Whose narrative should I subscribe to start this story? Like, I just wanted to be engrossed in that perspective. Please answer me in the comment down below, okay? This is one of the stories that I feel like the synopsis doesn't reveal much, and it's probably intentional by the author, but it's also one of the stories that I just have this much faith that it's gonna be turned out to be great just because of how much love the community has given for it. All of you guys in the comments as well, like telling me how great the story is, so I almost feel like this is a guaranteed good quality piece of work. Also, another green flag for this story is that it has a Facebook support group. I feel like not that many fanfiction in the dramatic community require people to have a support group because it has to be so great, it has to be so impactful, it has to be like so emotional for people to like come together and vent. So I almost feel like that's the highest of praise. It's gonna be great no matter if I'm gonna like it or not. Other than all the vouchers and the praise that I've seen on the internet for this fic, looking at the text alone, I see some of my very favorite, very up my alley type I've listed at the very front of the tag list as well. Angst and feel, mutual pining, and I almost feel like that's like enough for me because I've gone into fics like knowing much less. I'm entirely anticipate this to be a very high quality piece of work and also something that I would like. Lastly, lengthwise, this story is around 440,000 words, which if I finish this story is gonna go very high up the list lengthwise in my dramione fanfiction arsenal. I don't personally read that many long stories, so I truly hope that this turned out to be fire. But unrelated to this story and any other story in this list, I actually have seen the math of somebody in the community transferring like words in our dramatic fanfiction to like book pages, and it's just like mind blown to me because if you gave me a book that looks like a manuscript like this, I would never touch it. But if you give me like the Dragon Bride, Manacle, Remain Nameless, like I would read it in like a heartbeat, and I read them in a span of like a couple of days. I feel like sometimes like I don't think about how much I actually read and like how many pages would be if a fanfiction is printed. Now that I say it, you know, I feel much better about the length of Greenlight, just a little bit of something. The next story that we have is actually my number one on the TBR list. But before I go into this right off the bat, I think we are going to have many trigger warning in this story, so please feel free to skip ahead if this isn't for you. We have I Will Make You Proud by Where Does She Go. Drawn to this story because of the many screenshots that I have seen online, as well as the actual cover of the story itself. I think from the cover alone, you can probably tell that this is going to be a much darker story with a lot of trigger warning. So it's something that I don't typically go for, but because I've seen so many praises about the story online, I'm curious to know what this story is about. From the synopsis, it seems like we are going to have a character study on Draco Malfoy from Hermione's point of view, which is one of my favorite things to read in dramatic fanfiction. I know that we all seem for Draco, and I have mentioned this in Tremble and Depart already, but the Draco that thinks very little of himself, who bear the weight of the war and is very misunderstood. I want to see that Draco, and especially I want to see Hermione uncover that Draco. You guys have already know we have a tendency to sim for Draco Malfoy in this community, and me personally, I have a soft spot for him, and I've always find myself being so resonated with his character. And so this is just a short trip to my TBR after I read the synopsis. Another thing that really drawn me into this story is I believe this story to be a time travel fic. So recently I have read another piece of time travel fic where Hermione traveled to the past, see Draco, and changed the whole course of the war, and I was just so in love with how intricate and how like woven the timeline is. So I wanted to know more, I wanted to read more, and I'm more curious about time traveling in general. I don't think I've had that many experience with time traveling in like dramatic fanfiction, but every time that I actually read a time travel fic, I'm in love with it. It kind of like make me continue reading because I wanted all the answers to like the questions in my head, and I want an engaging story. If I'm going to go for a longer piece of work, it needs to be engaging because I'm like so easily distracted. Overall, I just feel like this fit everything that I want to read at the moment, and also the vibe that it emits is just like honey to me if I'm a bee. And so I will immediately go and read this story after this video, and I will of course report to you guys how it turns out. So the next two stories on my list are ones that I came across while I was browsing Reddit, and they both came from a thread around the 6-year secret relationship trope, which if you guys know me, you guys know that's like my favorite thing to read in the dramatic community. So even though these two fics like give off very similar vibes, I wanted to put them both on my TBR just because the whole 6-year thing is just like my aesthetic. I mean, it makes sense for me because I love reading it so much to have like two very similar stories on my TBR. And we have Chosen by 5 More Minutes and Nectar by Violet Nair. I honestly feel like not only the synopsis for these two stories read the same, even the tag list or the character list or the length are only like degree from each other. Kind of make me want to read them both because I want to see like how things are going to turn out differently for two very like similarly presented stories. So we have mentioned this before, but these two stories are going to surround Draco and his very famous mission now in the 6th year, and his entanglements with one very posterized Muggle-born girl, Hermione Granger. If there's one thing that I'm gonna do is read a 6-year dramatic fic. Lengthwise for these two stories, Chosen is a little bit longer at 218,000 words, while Nectar is only around 165,000 words. So first impression wise, just based off of like vibes and feelings alone, and not because of the quality or any comparison of these two work at all, I would probably read Nectar first. Please don't come for me, I'm not trying to put these author or these fic against each other, okay? Last on my list is also something that I'm super anticipated because I have read it before and never finished it, but we have The Politician Wife by Pierre A. Fancier. I hope that's how you pronounce the author name. So this story is set up 23 years after the end of the war, so we have older Draco and Hermione in this story, or actually everyone's older in this story. story, and because I have read the story already, I know that the first chapter involved an entanglement between Draco and Hermione's children, which was kind of the catalyst that bring them together. The reason why I'm putting this story back on my TBR is because one of you guys, one of my trusted friend on here, has recommended it, and I know that The Politician Wife is one of the more well-loved, the more well-read, the more well-recommended story in the whole Dramione community, and there are very few stories which I personally consider as the pilot or the classic in the Dramione community that I haven't actually read, and Politician Wife is one of them. So I kind of wanted to complete my quest, if that makes sense. The reason why I dropped out this story the first time around is because I struggled with the imagination of Draco and Hermione. Now, you guys know that in my head, I imagine Draco and Hermione to be the 6th-year version of Draco and Hermione, because that's how my whole obsession with Hermione started, and it's just like so ingrained in my head. So it's a little bit harder for me to like imagine them a little bit older. And now that I talk about it, now that I say it out loud, it sounds very like bullshit and silly. So I'm gonna make myself go into this and finish this story out, okay? But same thread on the other side of the coin, I don't think I have personally encountered that many fic where Draco and Hermione are portrayed a little bit older, and it's probably because of my own bias in like picking story. But because of that, I feel like this story is going to give me a very different or unique experience, which is kind of exciting for me as well. Another thing that just nailed this story onto my TBR is the length of this story. We only have around 65,000 words in this story, and consider how big or how long the other story that I put in this TBR are. I feel like this is just going to be perfect for when I don't want to start another longer fic. In general, I know myself, I know that I sometimes get scared of the length of a fic before I start it. So I feel like this story is gonna be perfect for when those moments come to me. And lastly, to round this video out, we have something very unexpected, very different, because it's not a Dramione, it's also not a fanfiction, and we have These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. From what I know about this story, because I've actually read a little bit of it already, it's just heavy enemy to lover coming together, having to set aside their past, and the fact that they come from opposing clans to protect the city that they love. I almost feel like this is Dramione adjacent. I feel like I will go into this and just be like, that's Dramione, this is Dramione. I actually wanted to read it because I wanted to have a benchmark. The amount of Dramione story that I've read and the claim that I've always made that Dramione fanfictions are better than like published romance book. I wanted to truly know if my claim is correct. This book was actually gifted to me by my cousin in 2022 when I first graduated from my master program, and actually started reading it, but I stopped because I was like struggling a little bit with something. To start something new, like I would have to craft like an entirely new characters like in my head, and like have to somehow fit the description. And then secondly, I think the writing is a little bit like, I don't know, it's not that it's bad or anything, it just kind of break my nerve a little bit. But I don't know how I'm gonna feel now 2 years later, so I mean, I'm curious to go back in as well. So if you want to know why I just suddenly wanted to read this story, I actually just suddenly want to read it for real, and I was putting things on my bookshelf and I was like, I kind of want to read it. I just had this like sudden urge to finish out this story. I don't know if I'm gonna actually read this or finish this out, just because I have the other Dramione story that I want to get to first. But now that's the end of my TBR list. But before we close out the video, I do want to share with you guys the sources where I go to get my fanfiction, knowing that I am super slacking in giving you guys recommendation. Now I've already shared the many ways to look for Dramione fanfiction in this video here, but I do find myself heavily leaning into the community. So whether it's like the Facebook group or Reddit, I have always find great piece of work to read. So I would just like to share those addresses with you guys, so that whenever you find yourself in need of a recommendation and I'm not here and I'm slacking, you guys know where else to go in order to get that community feeling or to hear about what other people think about a fanfiction. And with that though, I'm back now and I'm gonna put out more video. I wanted to switch up some of these things as well now that I have more space, but I kind of want my first video to kind of resemble my old place. So but starting next video, I'm gonna switch it up so that you guys don't get bored of me. But now that I survived the move, I'm back, okay? And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.